Can we please give her another round of applause? Hello, everyone. My name is Follyvi Dossa. I'm a freshman at Morehouse College, international business major, and also the leading rep for NAN Youth Huddle. I want to thank all the panelists for coming out tonight. Most of them are actually really good friends of mine, so I'm very happy to have you guys, and also my Morehouse brothers also online, so thank you for him for being out here. I want all the panelists to introduce themselves, and I'll first start with, women's first, Nia White.
Well, hello.
Woo!
So one thing about me is I talk with conviction and I talk with my chest because I'm a Black woman and that's what Black women have been doing. So my name is Nia White. I'm an 18-year-old civil rights, social justice, and political advocate. I am a freshman at Hampton University going into my sophomore year, HU. I am a major in political science, minor in communications on the pre-law track, born and raised in East New York, Brooklyn, from a Jamaican immigrant mother, single mother, and yeah, that's a spiel about me.
All right, Larry, you mind if you go next?
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Larry Malcolm Smith Jr. I'm a youth civil rights social justice activist, a movement strategist, a public advocate for the foster care and child welfare system, and I'm a former foster child that had aged out, homeless and in a homeless shelter currently with no resources of stable and secure housing. I dedicate my life to protecting Black children and continuing liberating Black, Indigenous people of color, especially our youth. Thank you.
Brother?
How we doing tonight, everyone? My name is Osse. I am one of the founding members of the activist collective Warriors in the Garden. I am also a candidate running for New York City Council in the 36th District. That's Bed-Stuy in North Crown Heights. If I were to win on June 22nd, I will be the youngest council member in that district. I am the youngest person to be endorsed by the New York Working Families Party. I'm really looking forward to finishing off this campaign season and making sure that young people and young activists and progressives are elected in every level of politics. So thank you so much for having me here.
My name is Ousmane Diallo, and I'm a political science major at SUNY Albany with a minor in criminal justice with the hopes to add in Africana studies. I'm not as polished as the rest of the panelists, but I'm a youth representative at NAN Youth Huddle with leaders like Ashley Sharpton in the building.
And you're doing your thing.
All right, now let's get on to our virtual. So we'd like Wisdom Cole to go next, please.
Hey everybody, this is Wisdom Cole. It's so great to be with you all in this virtual and in-person panel. I feel like every day in the pandemic, there's a new type of event happening, so it's so great to be with all of y'all. I'm currently the Interim National Director for the NAACP Youth and College Division, and I'm calling in today from San Francisco, California. And it's so great to be here with you all.
All right. I'd like to call my Morehouse brother, Kameron Smith.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Kameron Smith. I'm a sophomore political science major, sociology minor on pre-law studies track from Newport News, Virginia. And I currently serve as the president of the Morehouse chapter of National Action Network, serving the greater Atlanta area.
And of course, last but not least, Ray, please.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Ray Shackelford. I too am a graduate of Morehouse College. I serve as the 10th National President of the National Urban League Young Professionals. We are a 21 to 40 age volunteer auxiliary that supports the National Urban League and its more than 90 affiliates across the country.
All right, let's get to the questions. We've many people got different reasons for joining the movement. I want to know, what is your guys' reasons for joining the movement, and especially at a young age? Anyone would like to go first, please just raise your hand and go.
Yeah, I'll take this one. So I believe that Black women have been leading movements continuously and forever, for as long as we know. And for every movement behind it, there is a strong Black woman who is supporting, who is leading, and who is needing to be the face. So my goal for my activism and the reason why I joined was for representation. for the fact that I can sit here being the only Black woman on this panel and know that in rooms like this, I will say the names of Black trans women, say the names of Black women who are doing this work, like Ashley Sharpton, like Queen Jean, the many Black women who are doing this work, like me, who need to be in these conversations and need to be in this room. So the reason that I'm doing this work is for representation and for the fact that many people need to have these opportunities.
Yeah, just to build off of what Nia said, Black women are at the forefront of this movement, have been at the forefront of the Black liberation movement for as long as we can all remember. I jumped into this movement after both the George Floyd and Breonna Taylor murder. It was, I was in quarantine like many other people this past year and was unable to turn away from my phone, my computer, because of the images that I was seeing of both of them. I took to the streets right after that. The first night I went out, I was honestly surprised at how aggressive the police were. I know that sounds funny because we are raised to understand where they lie, but the outward aggression that they were lashing out at on protesters, on Black women, on children, gave me this drive to continue going out the day after that, the day after that, the day after that. And each day I went out, not only was I following the voices of the Black women that were leading the movement, but I was finding my own. As someone that was going out nearly every single day, I knew that being on the streets, demanding and chanting could not be our only strategy to achieve the change that we wanted to see. At the time this past summer, there was a magnifying glass put at our city council when it came to their vote on the police budget. And the council disappointed us. It disappointed the organizers. It disappointed many Black and brown individuals here in New York City. And rather than complaining, which I was, rather than just complaining about the way that my council member voted on that budget, I took it upon myself to jump into this race so that I could be the individual in the room in City Hall writing legislator and defunding the NYPD.
Any other responses?
I would say my activism is rooted in my identity and the fact that I'm a Black Muslim man. I'm sitting here not only as W. Du Bois talked about having a double consciousness, I tend to have a triple consciousness and being the child of immigrants coming here. So I was always having this sense of defiancy, like it's not how it's supposed to be. Then seeing it in my country, also knowing that that's not how it's supposed to be. So finding my footing in this world is like being this. When I was coming up as a young kid, they called me defiant, disrespectful. But now this past summer, Follyvi had invited me to NAN Huddle, and with our leaders like Ashley Sharpton, Dominique, and Patrice, and Trayvon, they have given me a voice and a platform to help. They shaped me and molded me to be this great person that I am.
Any other responses to the brothers virtual?
Yeah, so for myself, I was about 10 or 11 years old when Trayvon Martin was killed. And, seeing that at my young age was not right to me. And I realized that not only are there countless injustices that we face as Black people in America, but also there's a lack of accountability from the government standpoint, from our politicians, from those who claim to be in place to help us out. But in reality, they're just working capitalism. And so, seeing all of that pushed me into going into Morehouse, and not only that, but joining National Action Network and being under the mentorship and leadership of people like, Ashley Sharpton or Reverend Al or, my brother Tyleek. Seeing that made me realize that there's a greater fight that we're always going to be fighting. And it's us versus those who need to be held accountable for their actions. It's not just us versus the police. It's not just us versus people who are anti-LGBTQ. It's us versus those who need to be accountable. And so coming to that realization was one of the main reasons that I joined into activism, and I needed to get out there and be a voice for the voiceless. So.
Yeah, and I'll continue off of Kameron because that also was a point for me. So I was actually a sophomore in college when that happened. And it was very much like this summer, very similar to the Derek Chauvin case, where we were waiting for the verdict when we called it the Trayvon Martin case, when we should have actually called it the George Zimmerman case. And being on a campus at the University of California, Santa Cruz, being a science major, not a lot of people there, really feeling to be called into action at this moment in time. And so thinking about the idea of, organizing my very first protest and really working to not only mobilize people on campus, but also community members to actually say something to the local Santa Cruz community, say that we're going to stop business as usual, that a Black man has been murdered unjustly, a young Black man has been murdered unjustly, and that there was no justice for his family, for himself, and for the community, and that all across the nation, young Black people and Black people everywhere were writing for justice. And so it was necessary for us to step up and to do something about it. And so recognizing that in certain moments in time, you are called to serve. And there was a saying that someone told to me that came from Assata Shakur: "It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. We must love and protect each other. We have nothing to lose but our chains."
I think for me, it was a combination of factors. To whom much is given, much is required. And so I was very fortunate and blessed, those that sold into me and committed me to service at a very early age. I knew that I had to give back. And I'm thankful, for the comments from Nia and her representing women today, because specific to my Urban League journey, I would not be in the seat I'm in if it were not for my mother, who actually paid for me to join when I came back from Morehouse, because she felt like I needed to be doing something more productive with my life. And ultimately, I identified it as a part of my purpose to be a leader in my community, specifically the Black community, and helping to drive forward meaningful change.
All right, clap them up, y'all. All right, let's move on to the next question. We have all seen the recent deaths of 2 more unarmed Black boys. I wanted to ask the panel, how do we remain motivated to fight for Black lives after so much hardship?
I'll take this one. My willingness to keep fighting is based on and rooted in my faith that we have to speak truth to power and have to keep fighting for justice. So even when bad things like this happen, it's very unfortunate, but we're in a struggle. We're in a war between good and evil. We're in a war between the powerful and the unpowerful, and we're trying to get that power so there can be justice, there can be equity, and there can be a sense of moral rightness in the world.
For me, I feel that it's just staying strong and not feeling dehumanized or desensitized, and not letting the desensitivity sink in our body and in our mind and in our spirit and in our soul. Knowing that Black people have been fighting for the lives of, fighting and protesting and organizing for years, for over 400 years ago, since we were stolen on slave ships. One thing I definitely feel is that we have to continue to strategize and bring all of our problems to the table to make sure that we can hold those who are in positions of power in our inadequate government institutions accountable.
I would say that many who are seeing these Black deaths and seeing Black trauma constantly on their screen have the mistaken ideology that we need to be okay with it. You have the right, and it is your right as a human to not be okay. As Black people, we have the right to not be okay. We have carried this country on our backs for years. So we have the right to say, I don't want to see this right now. I'm going to stand back for a second. It doesn't mean that you are not fighting for your lives, because every day that a Black person wakes up, you are fighting for your life. That is resistance. That is resilience. So if a Black person tells you that, nah, I'm not going to talk about this right now, I don't want to see the video, I don't want to see Instagram death and Black death as if it's something that I follow, or something that I'm interested in, or something that I entice into. We have the right and the privilege as people who have been in so much trauma and inside of so much pain. We have that opportunity. So to any Black person who is listening, you have that right to not want to protest. You have that right to just want to mourn. You have that right. Because for so long, with everyone seeing it, especially during COVID, every second I was seeing a Black life that we lost. And you constantly become desensitized to the situation. You constantly feel as though, oh yeah, just another one, you can scroll away. When really that's so harmful to our people. When you constantly see it on our screens. I stopped crying. I genuinely stopped crying at one point, and that is what broke me. The fact that I just seen it as another life, and that is what I know many people started to believe. And that's when I know that I need to take to the streets. Because for so long, we kept seeing it to the point where it became normalized. And that is not normal. Black death is not normal.
Yeah, I think what helped me get through the continuous deaths that we're seeing of our people is understanding that this is a long game. And I think some people have a hard time coming to terms with that because we're tired of seeing people that look like us, look like our sisters, our brothers, our family members being killed and displayed on TV every single day or every single week. But we are combating this monstrosity that is white supremacy. And this dismantling of white supremacy is going to take some time. But what gives me faith is that there are individuals like ourselves that are on this stage, like the other panelists that are tuning in from where they are. We understand the beast that we are combating, and we're organizing, and we're working against that, and we're communicating, and we believe, and we truly believe that the end is going to come in our lifetime because we're working hard. And we've been brought to this moment where we have to work hard to save our people.
Mm-hmm.
To the brothers online?
Yes, I think that to add to the aforementioned, it's extremely imperative that we also stay in touch with what's happened before us in the past, and also think of what's to come. Think about those who laid their lives down for us to have simple rights to vote, simple liberties that we still aren't fundamentally guaranteed. And I think that while understanding that, to maintain your fight and your desire to fight as a Black person, and not become desensitized to seeing Black death and seeing people brutalized in the streets, you must also understand that this potentially is something that you can face day to day, and not only you, but those to come after you, which is why it's important to educate yourselves and educate your brothers and sisters and pass that information on, because truth be told, there is no white person in this country that has lived what we live and experienced what we experience, and therefore cannot help us in the way that we can help ourselves. And so I think that it's fundamentally important that when we continue on this movement, when we continue on this fight, when we recognize that there is a problem, and when we understand that white supremacy is a plague, we will furthermore be able to teach those that come behind us and use that to bring those behind us and the next generation behind us to keep the fight going. We cannot lose the spark or the flame, because ultimately that'll be a detriment to Black communities as a whole. We can't lose the passion that we have, because furthermore, when we get down the line and when we have our grandchildren, we want them to be able to experience liberties that we didn't have and that we have been trying to fight for years, and that our grandparents and great grandparents have been trying to fight for years. So that's my piece.
That's very real. I think this week has been very hard. It's been very difficult. I think that we're constantly faced with this over and over again. Even when we think that we're over it, it comes back and back again. And so it's very necessary to think about where you're drawing strength from, recognizing that there's resiliency in our community, there's power in our community, there's strength, there's beauty, there's love. It's important to draw on that in this period of time. And in this period of time, I also think about strategy and how are we turning to the people that we just elected, the elected officials that we want to hold accountable for things that are happening in our community. At every single level, on the local, state, and national, there are people who have a direct impact on these cases, a direct impact on things that are happening in our world. And so it's necessary for us to keep them accountable, even for young people who are on their campuses. It's an important time for us to reevaluate some of the systems that we think are normal, right? Thinking about Black death is not normal. policing on campus is not normal. What do we need police for? Is that actual something that is going to be serving us or something that's taking away from us? And so in this period of time, I've been urging our young people to think about how do you evaluate these systems that we see as regular, which actually may be more irregular than we think.
And for me, I think, as everybody's mentioned, it's been very hard for us coming out of 2020 and even the past week. It really just comes down to, your faith, whatever that is that you believe in, whether it be God or whatever your foundation is. You have to have something that anchors you in order to drive through, what we've experienced just in the past week, the past year, but over the history of our people in this country. You have to have faith, but also a strong why. Why is it that you've got involved? Why are you doing this work? I'm reminded of the speech, The Other America, that Dr. King wrote, and specifically referencing, riots are the voice of the unheard. And, when we had George Floyd and a lot of these different instances were protesting, sometimes they do erupt into, larger demonstrations. But at the end of the day, it's not just a message to those electeds that are white, but also those of us that operate as Black leaders in a place of privilege to make sure that we still are being a voice for the voiceless. They come from those communities that don't have these platforms and the same access and resources that we do, to make sure that they get what they need and we as a people ultimately move forward.
All right, so I have a question for our city council candidate. I know you are 23 years old. Can we first clap that up? That's amazing, brother. Why is it so important for young folks to get into politics?
We talk a lot about representation, especially in the world of politics. Representation of race, representation of gender, representation of sexuality. But we need representation of age as well. Especially, thank you. Yeah. Especially now more than ever. I believe that we are in multiple crises here in the United States. We're in a climate crisis. We're in a racial crisis. We're in an infrastructure crisis. I know Joe Biden is trying to deal with that right now. Yet our government does not reflect the people that have issues with the crises that we're experiencing. Many of the people that are making noise about what's going on with the climate, which is going to affect neighborhoods of color and communities of color more than white neighborhoods, are young people. Yet it's being neglected in every seat in office, whether local, whether statewide, whether federal. What we need is representation of young people. We have seen a new generation of revolutionaries born this past year, and even before that. And we're taking to the streets, we're taking it to the polls, and we're taking it to City Hall. I am the youngest person running in my race. We've outraised every single other candidate here in the race. 100% grassroots, have not accepted money from police unions, real estate developers, fossil fuel companies. What has made us so successful in this race is the fact that we are speaking the truth. Those that have been experienced or old enough to be running for office are disillusioned by government and understand that in order for them to get things done, they have to stoop as low as those individuals that are putting money within their pockets. That is not what I'm running on. I'm running to create a future for my Black community rather than fulfilling the promises and wants of individuals that are putting money in my pocket. But we need young people. We need young people in government. We need young people on the street. We need young people in every aspect of society to be at that table, writing the rules and making sure that things get done within our favor amongst those that are also experienced and have been doing it for a bit.
Definitely. Osse 2021, y'all.
All right, I got a question for my Morehouse brother, Kameron Smith. I want to first congratulate you. You just recently became the president of the NAN Morehouse chapter after our brother Rick Hart just became the president of the Young Democrats in Georgia. So first, let's really clap him up. Anyone that knows me, I will always clap up my Morehouse brothers. I wanted to ask you, what are your plans now that you're in charge?
Well, firstly, with a heavy focus on the greater Atlanta area, we have a lot of lower income individuals, a lot of Title I schools. I want to have a heavy focus on the younger generation, right? So when we go to Fickett Elementary, I want to have a focus on educating them in terms of what is out there, not to be afraid, but to take it head on, because there's going to be things that they experience beyond just the elementary school years. And I think that it's something that we can do aside from whatever teachers or mentors they may have in their life. I know that we can have an impact on bringing them forth. And then secondly, one of the biggest initiatives that I have planned for this upcoming year is Member Service Mondays. So a lot of times, you know, and actually now that we are in a virtual format, I think that we are realizing that we have a great impact on our communities, and we can do so virtually. We are in our communities while we can meet together virtually. So one of my biggest plans is for us to be able to just go out and serve those in our community every week, and raise awareness for what's going on in the current time. You know, we have individuals from different cities who have police departments that are out of control. We have individuals in cities who have trans people who are just being brutalized in the streets simply for their sexuality. And I don't think that that is appropriate in any means, So, you know, I think that doing so every Monday, every week, we are going to go out in our communities. We're going to raise awareness for what's going on, provide a sense of hope for our communities while bringing that back to Morehouse and mobilizing Morehouse as a school and as a unit to go out into the greater Atlanta community. So.
So now I have a question for Nia and Larry. You know, we've done a lot of protests together in the city. The one that's most memorable to me is when we took over the FDR Drive. I remember, you remember that, right?
Which time?
It's like that.
Well, the one that I was there. So I wanted to ask you, what was your emotions when we took over that? Because anyone who's not from New York, you have to understand that is one of the most busiest highways in New York City. Okay, that's one of the most busiest highways. So I wanted
She
to ask,
shut down the Holland Tunnel last night, too.
Yeah,
Oh, and,
we just shut it all down.
Shutting everything down.
I wanted to know, what were your guys' emotions when we took over that highway?
Yeah. Well, Larry, I'll let you go first for this one. I think I have a long explanation.
All right, no problem. My emotions was just seeing community building and unity coming together. There was something that was said, together united, we can never be divided. And knowing that young folks of Gen Z have been literally organizing, even with Occupy City Hall, when we were out there making sure that we can hold people who are in positions of power for the budget. My emotions was just like, wow, like, I can't believe we literally live in a country where we have to fight for justice because our humanity has to be recognized. One thing that really hurted me was the fact that I feel that this country should be lucky that we are not asking, but we are demanding justice and not revenge. Knowing that there was looting and rioting and everything that was going on, I think it hurted me the most of white folks coming to Black people and telling us to condemn our brothers and sisters because we do things that we shouldn't do and say things that we shouldn't do. And I always believe that God has the right to condemn and denounce those people, but even he never condemned and denounced those people. America has done the condemning and denouncing enough. And for me, I just want to say that like our emotions was just like tears, and you know, we were shutting down so many highways, we shut down the streets, and we're just gonna continue going with that fire and just not letting no ego or no toxicity like sink in. We're just gonna make sure that we can all just come together. It's the right thing to do.
Yeah, so thank you for that. Let me just set up a little bit, because, so like she was saying yesterday, every Thursday, we Stonewall Protest happens at Stonewall Inn, and one of the takeovers that we did yesterday was at the Holland Tunnel, and we shut it down because we pay taxes for it, and that is our right. If we want to hold space there, we can. So every time that we hold an action that is that high risk, I think of my mother, I think of my 11-year-old nephew, I think of my family and whether or not I will have the opportunity to speak to them ever again. I think of the possibilities that I will never see any of these beautiful faces again. And those are the emotions that I face even when I'm not on the front lines. So when I think about when we're taking about over bridges, I think of me just existing. Regardless, I am at risk. Regardless, being a Black woman in America, it is at risk. It is at risk to be abused. It is at risk to be murdered. It is at risk whether or not I'm inside of my home or not, as we've seen with Breonna Taylor. So it is the constant thoughts that I know that I need to be outside because I don't have that privilege to stay home and think that I'm safe, or stay home and think that enough is enough and I'll just be fine if I post an infographic or if I post a black box on my Instagram story. It's never going to be enough until you actually speak up. So whenever I think of the emotions, I think of the Black women who came before me. I think of the Black women who are surrounding me. I think of the Black people who are around me and doing this work alongside me and came before me and also carved a path so that women like me, young people like me, can have that opportunity to be at peace finally, whenever that time comes.
Absolutely.
What advice or piece of wisdom would you give to a young person that is joining the movement?
My advice to any young person listening, which I always say, is that you are enough. For so long when I was younger, I felt I wasn't enough. I dealt with mental health issues, depression, anxiety, to the brink of suicide. And that is the real talk. So when we're talking about being in a space with representation of people who look like you, it's not just looking like you, but it's having the same stories as you. It's about making sure that people can connect with you more than just on a trauma level, but deeper on a real personal level of knowing that they are Black, that there are Black people who deal with these real life issues. So when I say that you can come into this space and be enough, it's because Black people are going through so many issues, and Black people have so many different identities than Black death, which is what we usually see, and which what they always want us to be combined into. You are enough whether you are too queer, whether or not you are too much of a lesbian, they say, or too much of a woman, too much of a man. Whatever you are and whatever you identify as or whatever you want to be, you are enough to be in this space. And you have the power and the privilege and the opportunity to make space for yourself, whether or not they listen. And if they don't, make a new room for yourself, because they don't deserve your voice.
I definitely want to add on to that. You know, I think we hear this narrative that Black communities are homophobic or sexist. Those are only, themes and institutions that have been passed down to Black communities through white supremacy. Those are white supremacy's invention. To the people, young people that want to, join the movement, this is a movement for all Black people. We're not a monolith. We come in all shapes and sizes. We come from different backgrounds, but we're here in this moment fighting for the same thing. Because when a white person looks at us, they see one thing, and that's the enemy that they want to kill. So when you want to join this moment, recognize that we may be different, but at the same time, we are standing in solidarity, and we'll continue to stand in solidarity, and we'll continue to fight for not just ourselves, but all of us.
My advice to any young person out there that is watching this is knowing that there have been so many people that have told me to sit back and wait my turn. There are days I've always heard the youth are the future, the youth are the hope. And I believe that young people should know that they are right now. They should be celebrated, they shouldn't be separated. They should not be marginalized, they should not be put down, they should be literally standing together, and their voices should be amplified by any means necessary. Making sure that young people not just have a seat at the table or have a baton, but actually building that table and leading that table with people who have been mostly impacted to this injustice. Young people always feel afraid to, stay silent because they feel that their voice doesn't matter. And I just know I want to say it's so important to never let anyone ever tell you that your voice does not matter, and to continue to find your voice and live in your purpose before it is too late.
My advice to the young people that want to join the movement is, first of all, just start. Start somewhere, and there's a lane for everybody. You don't have to be on the front lines, as they say. You can find activism in anything you do. For example, you want to be a hairstylist, be a hairstylist for Black people, help out Black people,
Right.
and
You
have an identity.
Absolutely.
That's true.
I can use a haircut, I'm not gonna lie.
Be the voice of reason for Black people, not understanding that we need unity, not uniformity. As they said, we're not a monolith. So that's the one thing I'll give Black people is to lead, and find young Black people is to lead, and find leaders like Ashley Sharpton, they will let you lead.
That was beautiful. Can I say one more thing just to add on to what you were saying? That really resonated with me a lot. One thing I also say quite often whenever I'm thinking and whenever I'm talking to younger people than me, I mean, I'm only 18, so don't really be often, but whenever I do, it's always the fact that I'm talking to them with conviction, I'm talking to them with passion and power, because I believe that if my words resonate with at least one person, I have done my justice on this earth. So whenever I talk with a purpose, because I know that there is at least one person listening to me, and if my words change one person's life, I did my job as an activist. That is what activism looks like.
To the brothers online.
Yes, I think if I could give a piece of advice to a younger individual, it would definitely be doing and standing for something, even when it's not the most popular thing out there. And I think that can span across activism or any part of your life. For me, going to college, coming from high school, I was coming from a space in which you would use your voice, you would say things, engage in certain things, organize certain things, and it wouldn't be popular, and that would be discouraging. And I want the younger people watching to know that though it may be discouraging, and though it may feel sometimes as if you cannot be a voice for the voiceless, or that your voice is being silenced, and as though people aren't listening to you, I want you to know that there are people listening, there are people paying attention, and there are people learning from you. And I want you to know that, you know, no matter what you organize, no matter what you put on, who you educate, in what capacity, you will always be making an impact, and you will always be contributing to forward progress. And so I think that is the most important piece, to understand that no matter whether a white person doesn't think it's popular or a Black person doesn't think it's popular, if you leave an impact on the movement, you have made some degree of change within our society. So.
Yeah, the piece of advice I would think about is, I would say, think global and start by acting local, right? We recognize that there are a lot of local campaigns that are necessary for us to be involved in, and that we need everybody in this movement. Particularly, we need Black data people, we need Black artists, we need Black singers, we need folks in Black policy writers, policymakers. You know, we need young people in these positions, not just having a seat at the table, but actually having real decision-making power. And there's a lot to learn from people all across the nation, all across the globe. And so taking those lessons, using those lessons, implementing them locally, recognizing there's ways that we can build power on the ground today. You don't have to wait to be in a national position. You don't have to wait to be connected to a national organization. You can start right away, and you can be a part of the movement in your own special way. And so each of us have a talent, each of us have a tool. And the thing is that we're entering into a new world. As people are getting more vaccinated, as people are going outside, the rules have yet to be rewritten. And so we have the moment in this time to actually write some of these rules and define what the future looks like for everybody.
And I'd say three things. You know, first, know yourself. Spend time to figure out who you are, what your voice is. You know, whether you lead in any of these organizations, if you choose to do your own thing, just make sure that it is, you know, you show up in that space as your own authentic self. So know who you are and find your voice, but also make sure that you heal. A lot of us in our community have experienced some type of trauma. You know, there's a stigma when it comes to mental health in the Black community. So take that time, whether it's therapy, meditation, reflection, whatever it is, just to make sure that you are good and you are as whole as possible, because it'll only enable you to be that much of a better leader as you continue on this journey. And I think the last thing is commit to the process of learning and unlearning. You know, we're taught a lot of things as we're growing up. And as you get older and get exposed to more things, there are different perspectives, there are different viewpoints. You know, be open to those things and unlearn those things you ultimately find not to be true. You know, obviously with MLK, we were all raised to believe he was, you know, this one person, nonviolent, but he also had another side to him, which was much more rooted in activism and fighting for poor people. And so just make sure that you seek out information, you research things, learn and unlearn. And if you do those things, I think you'd be well equipped to lead in a meaningful way.
All right, this is the last question. We're running a lot out of time, so let's make this quick. We have all heard the speech, the I Have a Dream speech by Dr. Martin Luther King. I want to ask the panelists, where do you see his dream now? Has it expanded? Are we coming closer to his dream? Where do you guys see his dream now?
When I heard and started studying the I Have a Dream speech, it was probably in middle school. And I was always, I don't call it woke, but I was always awakened, I would call it, inside of middle school and throughout high school, and just like from an early age, just because I used to read a lot and my sisters used to teach me a lot. So I always had a sense of knowledge when it comes to those types of situations. So when I heard that I Had a Dream speech, I thought I had a fantasy. I did not see a dream that was possible when I was young. But to this day now, I still sometimes go through whether or not it's a fantasy or a reality that's possible to reach. And I still sometimes think, well, I don't think we're anywhere near close. But one thing that really strives me to continue to keep going is the fact that he spoke on it, and the fact that I see it sometimes happening, not all the time, but I see it sometimes happening where Black children are allowed to play together, where Black children are allowed to be inside of a park and just live their life, where Black children and white children can be inside the same school building. So it's not I had a dream, but it is I will have this dream come true. And that's how important it is to talk with conviction and talk with passion, because your words become a reality.
I remember hearing about the Reverend Martin Luther King, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., I Have a Dream speech, and I was in a foster home at the time. And the first thing I thought about was just how much he has persevered, and how much he sacrificed his life and putting that, doing this as like a full-time job without getting no money or any type of compensation, but putting his life on the line, being a voice for others who don't have the platform to do so. And I look at that in today's generation, and I'm more than enough proud at the fact that his legacy still lives on. Seeing women run for office that we've never seen before. Seeing people part of the LGBTQIA+ community running for office that we've never seen before. And just seeing a lot of communities come together, it's truly incredibly amazing to see that. And yeah.
Thank you so much, Larry. Sadly, we ran out of time. I want to thank all the panelists who came in person and virtually. We had a great discussion. I want to thank you guys so much, so much.
Thank you.
Of course.
No justice.
No peace.
No justice.
No peace.
Thank you.